Hello everybody and welcome along to Spellsling on Shoestring, the series where I try and get you playing and winning games of Magic for as little as possible. This week we are looking at Pioneer, and we're looking at a very interesting deck that I've been playing with myself. This deck is Izzet Breach. So if you've been living under a rock for the last little while with Pioneer, the two big decks that are kind of the bogeyman of the format at the moment are Dimir Inverter and Underworld Breach. There is a banned and restricted announcement coming up very shortly, this Monday in fact. Dimir Inverter's probably going to get a ban, but I think Underworld Breach is going to get through it. It's going to be okay. The idea of the top Underworld Breach deck at the moment is to cast Underworld Breach, cast a bunch of spells, mill yourself out, and win with the Thassa's Oracle. Only instead of being in Temur colors like the tier 1 strategy, this budget deck looks to focus on Izzet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run through the main pieces of the combo first, then explain how the combo works, and then go around the rest of the deck. Sound good? Before I jump into the deck tech, be sure to click on like, subscribe, click the bell icon, join my Patreon, do anything at all that you can to help me out. It would be fan-friggin-tastic. Okay, so let's do it. So what are the pieces of this combo? First up, we've got Underworld Breach. Underworld Breach is 1 and a red for an enchantment that reads, all non-land cards in your graveyard have escape. The escape cost is equal to the card's converted mana cost plus exile 3 other cards from your graveyard. And at the beginning of your end step, sacrifice Underworld Breach. The next piece of the combo is Chronic Flooding. This is a weird one. 1 and a blue for an aura that has Enchant Land. Whenever Enchanted Land becomes tapped, its controller puts the top 3 cards of their library into their graveyard. And the final piece of the combo is Hidden Strings, which is 1 and a blue for a sorcery that reads, you may tap or untap target permanent, then you may tap or untap another target permanent. So for the more combo focused people out there, you might have already either seen this in action or you have some sort of idea of how this works. For everybody else, I'm going to run through it here very quickly. It's quite a simple combo really. You have Chronic Flooding on a land. You tap that land for mana and tap another land for mana as well, so you've got 2 floating in your mana pool. You now cast Hidden Strings. You use the Hidden Strings to untap those 2 lands, allowing you to then float 2 more mana again and mill yourself another 3 cards. The Hidden Strings is now in the graveyard. If you have an Underworld Breach out while you're doing this, you will be able to cast the Hidden Strings from your graveyard, targeting those 2 lands again. When you tap those lands for mana now, the Chronic Flooding will mill you for 3, allowing you to use those 3 cards to escape Hidden Strings again to untap those lands. So this will allow you to essentially create a loop whereby you mill your entire deck by just casting Hidden Strings and untapping these lands and keep going. Once you get to the end of your deck, instead of casting Hidden Strings with the 2 mana floating, you cast Thassa's Oracle and win the game. We only need to run 1 copy of Thassa's Oracle as well, because eventually we will mill it over and we will be able to escape it from our graveyard. Also in the deck are 3 Baral Chief of Compliance and 2 Goblin Electromancer. Now these are in the deck for a number of reasons. First of all, they can block quite well. Secondly, they reduce the cost of instants and sorceries in the deck by 1. And when you see how many instants and sorceries we're running that will cost 2 or more mana, you'll see why they're useful. And third, they allow us to go off with slightly fewer resources if needs be. So in order for this combo to work, we have to find the pieces to it first and ensure that our graveyard, if possible, is nice and healthily stocked too. Almost half of the non-land cards in this deck are dedicated to finding the pieces of the combo. I'll run through them all here. We're running 4 Opt because nearly every single deck that I play runs 4 Opt these days. Next up, we're running 4 Charter Course. Not only does this help us draw 2 cards really cheap, but we also get to put another card in the bin to help fuel escape. If you attack with a Goblin Electromancer or Baral and then cast Charter Course, that's just strict card advantage as well for very cheap. Strategic Planning is up next. It's 1 and a blue for a sorcery that reads, look at the top 3 cards of your library, put 1 into your hand and the other 2 into your graveyard. So this is a very cheap dig effect that also fuels our graveyard for escape. Next up is Discovery Dispersal. Now we're not actually casting the Dispersal side of this, but Discovery is kind of like a preordained that mills over instead of scries. The remainder of the non-land cards in the deck are dedicated to interaction, because while we are very good at digging to find our pieces, we still also need to make sure that our opponent doesn't win the game while we're doing that. Next up is Censor, 1 and a blue for an instant that reads counter target spell unless its controller plays 1 and cycling blue. 4 spiking something feels really good, especially if they play a Shameland afterwards. Being able to cycle for 1 blue mana kinda makes this copies 5 and 6 of 1 mana cantrip in this deck. Up next is Unsubstantiate, 1 and a blue for an instant that reads return target spell or creature to its owner's hand. So you can use this in a variety of ways. You can use this to bounce an opponent's threat, you can use this to save one of your mana bears, or you can use this as a pseudo remand effect. It's extremely powerful and versatile, and to be honest, I don't think it's seeing enough play. And then finally, we have got 2 Blink of an Eye, 1 and a blue for an instant with kicker 1 and a blue, which reads return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. And if you kick it, you draw a card. This might not seem like a whole lot of interaction, but to be honest, that's all this deck really needs. Once you have the combo pieces, you just win the game, so digging to find them is the most important part, and then the other pieces to interact are just to make sure that you don't die. Now, we're going to move on to the mana base, and it's quite straightforward to be honest. As you may have noticed, in the main deck, we're actually quite low on red. We're only running 2 Goblin Electromancers and the 4 Underworld Breach. The rest is all mono blue. With that said, we need to make sure that we can actually cast these critical pieces when we need them. We're running 2 Sulphur Falls, 4 Temple of Epiphany, 2 Wandering Fumarole, 4 Shivan Reef, and then to finish up, we're looking at 7 islands and 1 Ipnu Rivulet. The Ipnu Rivulet actually runs double duty in this deck. One is it is a protection against Dimir Inverter, making sure that they have too many cards in the graveyard to stop them from winning immediately with the Thassa's Oracle after an Inverter. Also, it helps us to mill ourselves. That's the main deck. Now let's look at the sideboard. For counters, we have 2 Spell Pierce and 1 Negate. As sweepers against more aggressive decks, we have 2 Sweltering Suns. For more problematic permanents, we're running 2 Stern Dismissal and 3 Abrade. Abrade being very good at taking care of Damping Sphere and things like Eidolon of the Great Revel, and Stern Dismissal being very good at, again, said Eidolon, but also things like Leyline of the Void. We've got a slight transformational sideboard with the remaining 5 cards. They are 3 Young Pyromancer and 2 Crackling Drake. The reason for this is some decks run Lost Legacy or Unmoored Ego post-board, and we really can't beat that if we're all in on our main game plan. As we're running a bunch of instants and sorceries, both of these cards will become very, very potent threats. At the time of recording, this deck is coming in at $96, which for a Pioneer deck that is a silly mad combo like this, that's really, really good. There are absolutely ways in which you can upgrade this. To be honest, the main part of it is in the sideboard and the mana base. Now in the mana base, you can add 4 Steam Vents and 4 Spirebluff Canal. That's nearly doubling the cost of the deck, but they are worth it, and you probably just have some lying around either from Standard or Modern or something anyway. In the sideboard, you could also run some Thing in the Ice instead of Young Pyromancer, and some Brazen Borrowers instead of the Crackling Drakes, so that you have additional threats but also have other ways to interact, like with Petty Theft. The great thing about this deck is that unless Underworld Breach for some crazy reason gets banned on Monday, which it won't, let's be real, it's not broken. Kind of. Then this deck is almost entirely ban-proof. There are some versions of this deck that run Lotus Field in the mana base as an additional way to help generate mana while you're going off, but I'm not 100% sure that that's really necessary. We've got a couple of tips on how to play this as well. Technically, the only card you need to have in your hand for the combo to work is Underworld Breach. All other cards for the combo can be in the graveyard, and with enough cards you can just escape them and cast them and start the loop anyway. Don't be afraid to cast Underworld Breach for value. Sometimes you just need to get another couple of cantrips to help find the pieces and just get going like that. The mana dorks in this deck can generate you a ton of value. Casting a Baral or a Goblin Electromancer on turn 2 and then untapping and casting Charter Course, Strategic Planning is insane. That's 6 mana worth of spells on turn 3. Don't be afraid to use Ipnu Rivulet on yourself to mill over potential combo pieces. The most important card to keep in your hand is Underworld Breach. If you scry with an Opt and you see a second Underworld Breach and you're against the Thoughtseize deck, take it. You need the Breach. Don't be afraid to cast Thassa's Oracle if you need to. She'll help you set up your draws and you can use her as a chump blocker. If for whatever reason you're comboing off and she's still on the battlefield, you can use a Blink of an Eye or Unsubstantiate to bounce her back to your hand and then cast her again to win. Don't forget the Hidden Strings has Cypher. Sometimes you'll have a cost reducer out and casting Hidden Strings in the main phase before going to combat to just generate a little bit extra mana so that you can cast a couple of Strategic Plannings or Charter Course or Opts or whichever, and then ciphering it onto the mana dork. Then if they deal combat damage to the opponent, you can then just untap the lands you've used and then try and combo off from there. And that's it, that's the deck. If you want to get this deck, there's a link below to TCG Player where you can get it for a great price. And if you buy it through my affiliate link, you will actually be helping me out a lot, which is awesome. If you want to see how this deck plays, I will be playing it on Monday on Twitch, so you can pop on over there. If you follow me over there, you should get a notification when I go live, so you'll know when to check out the deck. I'm also partnered with Ink Gaming, as always, so be sure to check out the link below if you need to get a new playmat or dice bag or whatever you need. If you use the offer code Savantia, you will get 10% off. That's it for this one. I would like to thank my wonderful patrons. Be sure to like the video if you liked it. Be sure to click subscribe, hit the bell icon to make sure that you stay up to date with all the videos that I release. If you really like this and want to support me, you can get me a coffee, or you can jump on over to Patreon and have a look over there. As always, take it easy and keep on drinking.